everybody, Bill Platt here, and I just want to have a real quick conversation with you about when you're setting up your journals. Now, a lot of people, I come from a background, I was a writer well before I got into the journal, so I've been writing professionally since roughly 2001. I've earned my living from it, and I wanted to have this conversation with you today about what you write. Now, I've got a training coming up really soon um, that deals with writing book descriptions for journals. Now, that's a more complex topic than what I want to discuss with you today, but I did want to mention that um, just to distinguish that that's not what this video is about. So, with your, I've been training people to do writing since roughly 2004, and one of the things that a lot of people, especially people who don't fancy themselves to be writers, they're always like, well, what do I say? How do I say it? And so here's the thing. When we're setting up the content inside of our journals, I tend to open the book with a how to use this book chapter. And realistically, you don't need to do anything fancy there. I've always said, and I do believe, that if you can describe a matter to a friend, then you can write up the kind of content that you need to write up to include inside your journal. So, for example, say I did the one the other day about the beach to well journal. So, the concept behind that, and it was kind of meant to be funny, but the concept behind that was that some people are needing to lose weight, and there's going to be 4 things that they need to be able to lose weight, and that's they have to watch what they eat, and they have to commit themselves to doing actual exercise, and then also they would need to work on their motivation. What is motivating them to do this particular task? And which was actually the 4th item, and the 3rd item was what is the state of your current health? So with the Beach to Well Journal example, I had the 4 things that we demonstrate to the people who purchase the book and who purchase the journal. There are 4 things that we're going to help them keep track of in their personal life. And so in the how to use this book, we would just have a general description there that this book has been designed to help you keep track of the things that you need to do properly in your life in order to be able to lose weight. So those things are: watch what you eat, make sure you do exercise, keep track of your actual health situation, because if your blood pressure is high, maybe you don't want to do this, and if your blood sugar is high, maybe you want to change your diet a little bit more, those type of things. And then your motivation for what you're doing, so why you're doing what you're doing, and the goals you have for yourself at the end of this journey. So in that how to use this book chapter, we simply tell them what we're giving them, and a lot of people describe it as tell them what you're going to do for them, show them how to do it, and then summarize what you just told them. And that's all you really need to do. It's only 300-400 words at the beginning of the book in the first chapter that basically tells people how to use this book. Now, when I was doing the coloring books, I would publish a coloring book, and I would do a introductory chapter that basically told them, yes, some people complain that if you're using like a marker to do your coloring, that the ink will bleed through the page. And if I were to give you a book that had the paper of such quality that did not bleed through, then you would be paying 3 times as much for this book as you actually did pay. So rather than us complaining about what isn't, let's work with what we have. And instead of worrying about the ink bleeding through, take a simple piece of cardboard and slip it behind the page you are currently coloring, and then that way, if there is any bleed through, the cardboard back behind your page will stop that bleed through from getting to the page behind. So I instructed people how to use um, cardboard to block bleed through if they were using a marker, and also to do the same thing if they were using pens or pencils to color, because they didn't want to leave the indentation on the page on the next image as well. So I instructed them what to do and how to get the best value from the book that they had purchased. And the same thing applies to the journals. We want to instruct people how to use the book and get the best value from the book that they have in their hands. So we basically tell them in 300 or 400 words how to do that. Now, people say, well, how do I write that out? Well, very simply, if you can sit down and tell your best friend, just imagine yourself in that conversation. You're sitting down with your best friend and you want to convey to your best friend how to do this. If nothing else, record the conversation. But have that conversation in front of a mirror and record your conversation, or remember the context of that conversation and just write it down, because all writing is communicating an idea from one person to another. There's nothing really difficult about it. Now, the only issue that some of you might have is maybe you're not a fancy speller and maybe you don't have good grammar, but if you write it up in something like Microsoft Word or LibreOffice, it will show you most of the spelling mistakes. It'll also show you a lot of the grammar mistakes. And so you can use that to correct it. And then you can also hand it off, since it's only 300 to 400 words, you can go to Fiverr and hire an editor for $5 to edit your 400 words of text. And that will take care of that. The editors over there on Fiverr, they'll do a good job for you. They know what they're doing. They are hanging their shingle as an editor for a reason, because they know what they're doing, okay? So either you hand it to somebody on Fiverr for $5 and have them do the editing, or trust what you get out of Microsoft Word, or you hand it to a good friend, someone who has those editing chops, the spelling and grammar chops that you think you lack for yourself. And the biggest thing with like the spelling, it's not 100% accurate to rely on your word processing software, because there are certain things that come up. Like one time I made a major misspelling in an article that got published to 500,000 readers, and I was embarrassed about it because nobody caught the error. But I was talking about an aisle in a grocery store, and I spelled it I-S-L-E. Well, anybody who is good with spelling knows I-S-L-E refers to like an island in the ocean, and an aisle in a grocery store is A-I-S-L-E. So it was a minor. The reason why the word processing software missed it is I didn't misspell the word. I just misused the word in the spelling that I did use, okay? If that makes any sense. So if you, like, I have right here, you can see the words to use instead of very. That's on one of my pages that I run on Facebook called Writers Discussion Group. You can sign up there. If you have simple questions, you can ask them. We can answer them for you. But I don't spend a whole lot of time monitoring questions inside that group. Primarily, I use it for information dissemination, okay? So when you're writing inside your book, just worry about conveying an idea to somebody. You might turn it over to an editor, somebody to edit it, and make sure your spelling's right, make sure your grammar's right. But the main thing is to make sure your flow is right. Make sure you don't leave any You don't start a conversation about something and then don't answer it. That's kind of bad taste, to introduce a story that you don't have a conclusion to, or to go off on tangent that isn't related to the topic at hand. But generally, if you can sit down in front of a mirror and have a conversation with your friend about how to use your particular journal, then that's all you need to write down on your page. And just do some editing and cleanup and get it right, and then put into your book and publish it. Don't worry about it. A friend of mine, she writes paranormal romance books, and she creates whole novels, and she's got, to this date, 15 novels to her name. Now, the thing that I found interesting about that, and the reason why I'm bringing it up in this context, is because I'm a nonfiction writer. I'm not a fiction writer. So I wanted to see how my friend did the fiction writing. So I wanted to support her, and at the same time, I wanted to understand the paranormal romance and probably kind of wrap my head around writing fiction. And so I sat down with her book, and on page 1 of the first book in her series, she had 5 spelling mistakes. And not a single person on Amazon noted those mistakes in the review. Nobody mentioned it in the reviews. But it about killed me to get through that first page, because being a professional writer, I saw those errors and they just jumped off the page and slapped me in the face, And then page 2, there's 2 errors. And her book was actually, I wouldn't say riddled with errors. She had, in 200 pages, she probably had 40 or 50 mistakes. 5 of them being on the very first page of the book. Now, what happens, and here's the reality of it, ideally we want to publish a book that doesn't have mistakes in it, because that just gives people something else to complain about. People love to complain. So we want to not make the mistakes so people won't have that thing to complain about. But the reality is there's mistakes in almost every book ever written. Even those, and here's the deal, the time I misspelled aisle, in that article, I wrote it, I did 4 editing passes, I turned it over to my editor, she went through it, after my editor went through it, I went through it again, then I submitted it to the publication, and their editor went through the article, and after, now we're down the road, 6 editing passes, and nobody caught it. Nobody caught that mistake until after it was published, and then I caught it. And it didn't matter. Nobody complained to me about it. I did not receive a single email or a single comment about misspelling that word. But I knew I misspelled that word. And it bothered me, because I'm a perfectionist. But the reality is most people won't notice, and even if they do notice, they won't care. Okay? So don't get bogged down in spelling and grammar errors. The primary reason we want to eliminate spelling and grammar errors is so that primarily we want people to be able to read what we've written from beginning to end without distraction. And spelling errors and grammar errors lead to distraction. And the more obscene the distraction is, the less likely people will finish what we've written. So, whereas I'm writing a 1,200 word article, if I have 1 or 2 mistakes, people might go ahead and just read the 1,200 words and not worry about it. And with a 200-page book, we might see 5 errors on the front page, and most people will go ahead and read the book. her particular book, that particular book, has something like 75 5-star ratings on the book. And then she's got like another 20 ratings that are less than 5-star. And not a single one of those people mentioned the spelling mistakes on page 1 of the book. So that tells me that most people, and people love the book, and they bought the series. It was the first book in a 5-book series, and a lot of people bought it, and she was doing really, really well with her books. With 15 novels out there, she's making about $12,000 a month from the sale of her novels. Okay? So the thing of it is, spelling mistakes are not going to kill our commercial success. Grammar mistakes aren't going to kill our commercial success. But we do want to try to avoid spelling and grammar errors because we want people to finish reading what we've written. And if you can hire a $5 person over at Fiverr to do that editing for you, it's a good investment because it takes away your fear. That's the biggest advantage of that, is it takes your fear away that you did something wrong. And the second advantage is that it doesn't provide a roadblock to people who are trying to read what you've written from beginning to end. And that's what we want them to do. We want them to read from the first word to the last word without distraction. So that's why we want to go ahead and do the editing on it. Now, like I said, the most important thing, the only thing we're really writing with a journal is a description page on how to use this book. That's the only writing you really need to concern yourself with outside of the book description. And the book description is a little bit, it's a more complex scenario because persuasion enters the equation when we're writing a book description, because we need to persuade people to purchase what we're selling. So ideally, we want to tell them what it's about, and we want to tell them why they would be, how their lives would be improved if they bought our book. Okay? That's primarily what you're trying to do with your book description. Demonstrate to people what they're getting, and demonstrate to people how their lives will be improved by purchasing your book. And like I said, I've got other training out there on this particular topic. Hypnotic book descriptions, just Google it. That's one of my trainings on writing book descriptions. And the one that's upcoming, I am undecided what to call it. I originally called it Solution-Based Journals, and then I came up with a new name for it, and I can't think what the new name is right now. But we will post inside the Book a Day Facebook group the announcement for that new product when it is released. I think you'll really like it. It's going to be a really powerful training. But I'm taking a little bit longer to write it because I want to make sure I get everything right. Okay? So anyway, I just want to leave you right there with... go ahead and end this video right here, because I wanted you to understand writing isn't that difficult. We can all do it, and the thing that most people fear is their spelling and grammar mistakes, and a $5 editor can fix that problem for you. So until next time, this is Bill Platt. Have a good day.